begun preliminary analysis. I've begun preliminary analysis on the Battle of Green Spring, which was part of the Yorktown campaign and which is a contender for BOAR Volume 11. Imagine that, 11 volumes. Who could have? It's really been a blessing. Who could have imagined such a thing back in 1998? Tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, BOAR Vassal Module designer Rob Doan and I will be playing a live game of Utah Springs. We'll briefly discuss the core elements of the BOAR system. Then we'll play a complete game, offering running commentary on not only the mechanics of play, but also the tactics and the rationale behind the moves we make. And we'll also, of course, take questions. We hope to see many of the folks that are on this session tonight in that room tomorrow. That's it. Gene, I want to thank both you and Harold for the opportunity to be among so many outstanding colleagues, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mark. I really appreciate it. I can't tell you how much I appreciate working with you over 23 years now. It's one of the things that's really fun for me is, the people that we work with, we tend to work with for a long time. And part of that's because that's just my personality and what I like. And I think part of it is we must find some mutual benefit to that over time. The best thing is your coworkers become your friends. And I just wanted to let you know, I really appreciate all that you've done for the awareness of the American Revolution and games and GMT. And so thanks for being here. All right, Ben Hall has been over there in the corner of my screen since almost the very beginning. And I see that Dick Vollers is here too, but on not video, right? So Ben, go ahead. But if you want Dick to pop in at any point, that's fine with me, okay?
Sure. So, I want to cover some ground. We got, I like to spin different plates and hope that I always have something going. But of course, as always happens, they kind of all hit at about the same time. So we've really been crushing the midnight oil in the last few weeks with artwork has come through for the Musket and Pike dual pack for the first 2 volumes of Musket and Pike series. It's not just a reprint, it's a redo of all the counter art. We've got new battles that weren't originally in there. There was new scholarship in the last 20 years, so we incorporated a lot of new research, updates of order of battle, etc. So a lot of new material in there for folks. It's a big lift, and Dick has been just absolutely fantastic going through all the little details as we go through there. So that's coming along. We're at the kind of the back end of that. So we've gotten through the counter art. We're in the playbooks. We're going to, have to do a little bit of update to the rule book to match the new counter art. But the rules themselves are pretty much intact. The maps and the new player aid cards, because as the series went along, we had the last 2 volumes where they had battle specific player aid cards. We took those, we kind of made them a little bit more useful. So there's a player aid card for every battle in there. So that's pretty exciting. The work that Charlie's done with the counter art and Mark on the maps is very good. And so I think folks will be very pleased with what they see. It's nice looking. I think it really adds to the look and feel of the game. So we're pretty excited with that. With the Fields of Fire, which is also kind of hidden, we're at the very tail end of the artwork. With it, Dom's been working that. He did the original artwork for Volume 1 of Fields of Fire, and some of the work in Volume 2. We've got the Battle of the Bulge expansion. So that's just about in the tank. We're the very last little cleanup of this and that in the playbook or the mission. So 7 missions in there, a lot of good work from the larger team involved with Fields of Fire. So you had mentioned earlier about the design and development teams getting together. It's been exceedingly helpful to have more sets of eyes, more sets of input. So Colin Parsons, Andrew Steed, if I'm saying that right, and Jason Carr have really come in to be very helpful to put that together. And queued up in there is. I built it last year. It is, well, my draft was about 75-page field manual for people who want to know fields of fire inside and out. It does, kind of like training missions where you can kind of go through different concepts and train yourself to be a junior infantry officer through both Marine and Army training missions, as well as philosophy, ideas on, this is how tactics work in the game, et cetera, formations, et cetera. So pretty excited with that. And then again, with artwork coming through, volume 1 of the bayonet and musket. So bayonet and musket is new. We've seen some artwork now. We did some of the initial artwork. We got a new artist, at least new to me, that I've been working with on the counter art, and done a fantastic job with kind of capturing one of the neater parts. Once we move tactical warfare into the 9 years and 9 Years War and the War of the Spanish Succession, then we start having like uniforms, uniform jackets, and people really get into that. And we like to bring that out, also show the formations in there. So that artwork is pretty exciting. The maps for volume 1, we've got 3 volumes already kind of mapped out. We've got the one that's on P500, that's Splinham and Neerwinden. We have Ramilly and Steenkirk is volume 2, and then we're working a volume 3. Actually, we'll be getting together with David Fox, who was the co-designer with that. In December, we're going over Oudenarde. So that one is, based on Van Damme saying, the devil must have brought them. So, when confronted with the English forming up on the wrong side of the skeleton. And so we're pretty excited with those. Those are 3 things where the artwork is coming hot and heavy. And we've been going through a lot of editing and getting that right. So a lot of work there, a lot of great team effort from across different parts of the GMT family, pulling that together. So very appreciative, and I think the folks out there will be pretty excited with it. And then looking forward, beyond the stuff that's kind of right near us, we've got, we would like to, based on what we're seeing is a preliminary success with the dual pack of the first 2 volumes. The second 2 volumes, volumes 3 and 4 of Musket and Pike, are also out of print, and it would be nice to look at those as a second 2-pack to get those back in print. We get a lot of player feedback saying, "Hey, this is great, but can we get those, Lily Banners and Gustav Adolf back in print?" It's like, well, hang on to your hats. Well, we'll try to get there if I stay healthy and we can get across the finish line. And more importantly, Dick stays healthy, because he really he comes behind me and finds all the little nitnoid details that we need to clean up. So again, thanks to Dick. I am working other designs. With Fields of Fire, I've got kind of a bunch of stuff that I'm doing, kind of like what, but on a much smaller scale than what Volko was saying. There's other people who want to produce stuff against that system, and I'm all for it. We're here to help. We're trying to run it through the team to see if there's good opportunities to get other material out there. Because we've seen a lot of people kind of self-publishing for, not selling it, but at least self-publishing their own kind of expansions and stuff. So that's pretty exciting that people get interested in it. I am working another tactical design, kind of moving up in the World War II to early, I guess you could take it to now on the working titles Regimental Combat Team. It really focuses on command and control between the battalion regimental command and kind of creating an OODA loop, as it were, so that you understand what's going on A lot of games abstract that out, but you know me, I don't like abstraction, so I will go in and say, you got to go, these are the 6 steps that it takes to issue an attack order. So you're on step 3 when suddenly something happens. Do you keep going through the other steps and launch the attack at 0-8, or do you go back to the beginning of your planning and execution track to try to execute another operation? The maneuver elements would be company size units, but it's really looking at, a regimental combat team size play where you're interacting between a regiment and its 3 maneuver battalions and supporting arms. Again, kind of pulling on some of my experiences from both historical research and as a professional soldier. Hopefully folks will like that, and that's still a little ways down the road, but I'll be working on that, as well as more bayonet and musket stuff. So we're pretty excited with it.
Thanks, Ben. And the second volume of multi-packs, I think that's kind of a no-brainer as long as the first volume does well. That's what we're seeing with Mark's. It took Tony and I about 4.2 seconds to say, yeah, that makes sense. To do that based on the success of the first one. It's a good way for us to get out of stock titles and series back out there. Of course, the bigger the games are, the harder that is, because we can't put as many of them in a pack. But even with dual packs, I think that's really helpful to be able to have those. So assuming this one's going to do well, I don't see a problem with getting the rest of the series back in stock over time in that way. So thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks. And Dick, do you have anything to add?
No, not really. Just want to say, everybody can hear me, right?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Okay, good. I just wanted to say that it's nice now we got some attention from the art department and things are starting to really move now. Charlie's been doing a great job on the cards and on the counters, and Mark's been working on the maps. So I really appreciate the progress now.
All right, thanks, Dick. Thanks, Ben. Really appreciate you guys. Ooh, White Plains. Did Harold do that?
Right. This is Mark again. I had that. I sent it over to Harold to pop up because I had, not to cut back into the discussion here, but I just felt like this is worth a quick, just a 2-second glance to give you guys that sense of that autumn foliage that I was talking about, and the way in which the architecture of the board is laying out nicely and so on. The village of White Plains itself is essentially located here, and there are 2 lines of American fieldworks that are behind the village along the Dobbs Ferry Road, and then on the high ground beyond that. Those have yet to be put in, as well as the village itself, like I said, and some of the other named locations and the crops and so on. And we have at the bottom of the map the offboard. I have an offboard movement mechanism for Tarrytown. Tarrytown is 7 miles away, but it's a port city on the Hudson River. The British, several British frigates and tenders have already run the guns and the chevaux de frise that were intended to block navigation in the Hudson by the Americans. They've run those barriers and are now at the port of Tarrytown. So if the British can take Tarrytown from the landward side, they can open up another avenue of supply to their army, and that then changes the retreat priorities on the map itself, as well as some victory points and opportunity cards that can be picked up. So that's just a little something extra for players.
Thanks, Mark.
To think about.
Appreciate that. All right, Alan Emmerich. It was here last I saw. There he is. I see you, Alan. You want to tell us about where you guys are with ETO?
Yeah, I would. Now, I have to stand up for this. This is a stand-up act. Let's see if I can share screen. Host disabled participant screen sharing. Okay, no screen sharing.
I'm going to try this. I'm going to try. It says here 1 at a time. What about that? Is that healthy?
Alan, it's for our own protection.
Yes, I understand. There we go. Let's see if that works. Share. Boom. Nothing?
Yeah, we can see it. Yes.
We can't. Okay.
Remember in high school is the slide.
Right. Okay. Well, since I'm not the most adept at PowerPoint, you're going to have to grind through that with me. Frank Chadwick's European Theater of Operations, ETO. I got one system that I'm working on, but it's not small. It's 5 volumes. Each is a mini monster. The first one, Thunder in the East, has already been published, and you would call it, as a wargamer, a 3-mapper. Some volumes are larger, some are smaller, but that's about the right weight. The scope of the project is, well, if you can see the picture, there are like 8 Price Club tables, 2.5 feet by 6 feet, to hold the map and the counters and the player aids and the boxes and stuff. So it's when you put everything together, and I don't recommend that, but there it is. You could put it all together and it all fits in one 10-foot by 12-foot space. So this is definitely a monster game for monster conventions when it's completely assembled. This is why we are doing it in volumes, because each volume actually fits nicely on just a table or 2. So that's kind of cool. The project plan for us is a monster game series that we're doing all at once. Not necessarily in slices. We're baking the whole pie and then offering it as slices. What we're trying to do is make sure that everything stays fully integrated, that we don't have to go back and keep retrofitting the first release over and over again, as you've seen with some game series. We want to do everything at once, know how everything in the first game affects everything in the fourth game, affects everything in the second game, and make it all a unified whole. It's really great working with Frank Chadwick on this, because he can hold those things in his head, and like I can, we can really try and see, well, how does that affect this aspect of this game in this scenario? And so those discussions are really great. So the 3 key players right now, since it's mostly development, is Frank Chadwick, who has just been an Order of Battle maven. I shared one of his detailed orders of battle on the chat rooms, and people just like blew their minds and said, "Are you going to have that as a supplemental aid in the game? Because I want to see it." We'll work on it. It'll maybe be up on the website. But Frank, you know, he's an old school war game maker, and this is an old school war game, like the kinds that got us excited back when we were in high school and got us into the hobby. So we're striving for that level of simplicity. For that, Frank has taken the rules as they evolved at playtesting. And you know, when you make playtest rules, you leave a note to yourself here and you write a long version of something there. Well, Frank has been editing it and squeezing and condensing and trimming it down. So the rules are much smoother now, which I like you know, good close shave. Myself, I have been working with all of Frank's orders of battles to create an integrated Order of Battle mat set. Imagine like 4 sheets per game times 5 games. And all of those pieces, this one leaves this game and pops over here into this game. So if you just bought that volume, you know that that's all you have to worry about. But if you put the 2 volumes together, you don't have to worry about that transfer. It's up to you. So there's been considerable hair pulling involved in getting every piece to enter and exit historically on every stage, which is why I have no hair, by the way. And we've been creating the solutions that all strategic World War II war games face, is like, when does America enter? Is that going to be random or deterministic? When does the game start? Well, 2 things that have plagued a lot of strategic World War II war games is, what the heck do you do with the Russians before Barbarossa? And the other one is, how do you get the Italians to be reckless and stupid without clamping an Iron Maiden artificial intelligence on them? We have actually threaded that needle and have presented neat solutions. We have a Stalin bot that actually builds out the Russians until war happens, even if it happens late. That way the Axis have an opportunity to come in early, come in late. But Stalin is always there. He's a fixture. He does his own thing. The Allies can't control him. The Axis can't control him. He just does what he does. And then when war breaks out, the Soviet player enters the game. There's all the pieces you've got. Set them up. Let's go. So that worked out pretty slick. And Mussolini is there too in a similar kind of bot, except he's making suggestions of the Axis that they should follow. Brilliant ideas like demobilizing the whole Italian army pretty much, and then declaring war on Greece in the very next month. So yeah, you will have these little quirky things happening with the Italians until at last Hitler pulls the plug and says, you know, Benito, you're now the junior partner in this partnership. So, and our third partner is Jay Johnson, who has been online and representing us there, making sure that the fan base stays engaged. So right now, the path is complete the beta version so we can do a public playtesting release for that. Ken Keller is creating a new Vassal module. If you've seen the old ones for this series, they're amazing because Ken is a programmer and he has taken Vassal to levels that I'm sure the designer never imagined. And then we'll be playtesting both scenarios and campaign games for individual volumes and multiple sets. We have to try every combination of everything, you know, and get a feel for it, make sure everything's going to hook up right. We're assembling the art team, and then we'll turn everything over to GMT. So because everybody likes pictures, here's some cool pictures. There's the France 40 core set, the American Army set of core ground units. This is a peek at all of the German Air Force units from every game in one picture, the entire Luftwaffe. And you can see the art is halfway done. We've got the art from Thunder in the East in here and placeholders for the other stuff. And then we'll show you some boats. Yay! The naval game Frank did, and it's almost a standalone game unto itself. It's kind of like War at Sea plus, you know, but it's got a lot of more history and detail in it, but simple systems. So I'm wonderfully proud of how that came out. And the whole series is card assisted, not card driven, card assisted. You select your cards and you have them up your sleeve so that you can pull this thing off or that thing off on that particular month or turn. So in a nutshell, that's Thunder in the East. Thank you all for listening. And how I stop sharing my screen, I don't know. Oh, there we go.
Harold's going to fix it for us.
Okay, thank you.
Right, Harold?
We lost Harold.
Yeah, Harold's here. I'm just trying to figure out how to.
Stop share. Oh, wait a minute. There it is. I found the button.
There it is.
All right. Thank you, Alan.
Sure enough.
You know, I always wanted to work with Frank Chadwick on a project, and I always wanted to work with Alan on a project because Alan is the best developer I know, except for all the other ones that work for us, right, Alan? And Frank is the guy that I played his games as a kid, and I just couldn't wait to work with him on a project. And when you guys brought this to us, you know, my first thought was, dang, this is ambitious. And it is, right? I mean, this is an ambitious project. I don't think I've ever seen anybody in our hobby over all the years try to complete a series before they release anything. And given that, you know, you release one game, but I mean, from the GMT piece, that it's going to be done before release. And I love that as a player.
Well,
you don't have to fix things over time.
Right. That way, when the first one is ready, I mean, you could sell the whole set of 5 at once if you wanted to be 500 like that, and they're there.
Exactly. So thanks so much for sharing all that stuff with us tonight. And I appreciate everything you guys are doing. Please give my best to Frank.
Okay, I will. I'm on wife support, so I have to go now.
All right.
Thanks everybody.
Alan. All right. I'm still working through the East Coast, guys, best I can. If Fred Schachter, you're on the East Coast, aren't you? Where's Fred?
Yes, I am.
Fred, tell us
Well,
what's
welcome.
going
Hey,
on.
Fred, I'm sorry, Fred, and Gene, just a heads up, it's almost 6 o'clock. We have
We
until
have 30 minutes.
roughly 6:30, yeah.
So guys, keep it brief if you can, okay?
We'll do. But first, I'd like to start with some congratulations again to Fred Serval with his public imminent distribution of Red Flag on Paris. And, congratulations to Mark Herman. Happy birthday. I do know there's a lot of old names here of people back to the glory days of the hobby, back when I was with SPI. And good to see some familiar names. And just to everybody with birthdays and to us graying war gamers, remember, folks, we can get old, but we can be immature forever. In any event, and the final congratulations to you, Gene, and thank you so very much for giving us the venue, the stage in which we can get our work out to our fellow hobbyists. The things that I'm working on, and I'm privileged to be working with some really fine designers. As the first I'll mention, I'm working with my old friend and partner, Mark McLaughlin, on Hannibal's Revenge. That is the next game in the Card Conquest series that was pioneered by Hitler's Reich. Very different type of game, because not only has the basic mechanics of Hitler's Reich, but you get to move armies on the map board with Hannibal, with Scipio. And it's been a lot of fun play testing that and seeing how that works. Again, in the spirit of keeping things quick, the other game I'm working on with designers Mark McLaughlin and Chris Fortenbrook is Ancient Civilizations of the Middle East. And I would urge folks, if you have questions or you'd like to help volunteer to help us with this game's playtesting development, please reach out to me on BGG. It would be a pleasure to have you join the team. Ancient Civilizations of the Middle East, I think with our promoting that game, we've avoided some of the pitfalls with the first game in the series, Ancient Civilizations of the Inner Sea. I think we made really clear, this is not a civilization development game. It is a civilization survival game. And that is very much in context with the great research that Chris and Mark, who were old roommates in Georgetown University many, many moons ago when they attended college there. And they learned that in the Bronze Age, most of the civilizations did not survive. So if you want to try your hand in it, and yes, it is very much a gotcha game, but then again, the civilization at the time very much suffered gotchas from various means in just trying to survive the thing. And that, I think, is the fun that people have with this particular system. And finally, I'm also privileged to work and with a designer, Frank Esparago, who can't join us today because he, like Fred Serval, is in Europe, way past his bedtime, on Congress of the Vienna. And I would urge again to look at Inside GMT, the website, for all the things we are telling folks about that game. Tip of the hat to you, Mark Herman, for inspiring us with Churchill, and that is a game developed from that. But this time the setting is in Napoleonic Wars period, right after Napoleon has been defeated in his abortive invasion of Russia in 1812, and now you try to survive as Napoleon, or try to triumph as one of the major powers at the time, Britain, Austria, Russia, and France, in making a go of it. And that is something, again, in the interest of time, please look up things on Inside GMT. And again, I would welcome people to join us. We do play tests these games via Vassal electronically, and we do have a wonderful team of people spanning the globe from Europe. We even have some playtests in the Philippines. I know John Size there. I know I'm working with some of your friends over there. And all in all, again, a privilege to be working with GMT. This has been a great amount of fun. And with that, in the interest of time, I will turn it over to the next presenter.
Thank you, Fred. Please pass on my greetings to the designers that you work with, and appreciate all that you guys are doing. I'm going to pop in. Let's see. I see Bill Byrne here. Bill, is Dick here today, or are you presenting for GBACW?
I'll present for GBACW.
All right. Why don't you go ahead and do that? And thanks so much for joining us.
You bet. So for those who aren't familiar with it, Great Battles of the American Civil War is the late Richard Berg's regimental level design, depicting, of course, American Civil War battles, but also other mid-19th century battles. Death Valley is the latest game in the series, but that won't be true for long, because currently at the printer is Dick Whitaker's Into the Woods, which depicts the Battle of Shiloh. Dick designed Into the Woods at Richard Berg's request as an update to the 1979 Bloody April. I believe we've honored Richard's request, and not only that, but paid tribute to his legacy, because we put our hearts into developing Into the Woods 10 different scenarios. I'd also remark that a lot of GBACW players prefer playing smaller battles because they don't represent the kind of time investment that the larger battles do. They'll be happy to know that Into the Woods includes 4 small scenarios in addition to 2 medium-sized and 4 large ones. Now, hard on the heels of Into the Woods, meaning also on the P500, is Greg Laubach's Battles for the Shenandoah. That's an expansion pack to Death Valley, and it will feature 4 battles with 9 scenarios, and all of them are going to be fairly small. In addition to that, we have a number of projects we're working on that are not yet on the P500, and most of them involve first-time designers. I want to mention Alan Dickerson's quad game of very small Civil War battles. It's called By Sword and Bayonet, and that is currently in playtesting. And I think it'll be a great introductory game when it comes out. Next, Greg has begun work on a remake of the older GBACW version's Gleam of Bayonets. Now, this is going to be a big project because Greg intends to include in it every major engagement of the Maryland campaign in 1862. Next, we have Albert Smith, who drafted most of the scenarios in Into the Woods. He is now at work on the design covering the Battle of the Wilderness. We play tested his Saunders Field scenario at CSW Expo in August, and the results were good. In addition to those, Thomas Fernbacher, who would be a first-time designer, he's designing a game featuring 5 battles fought west of the Mississippi River. And I believe that testing is going to start early next year, early calendar 2022, if not before. And people who have been playing GBACW since it came out in 1980 might be interested to know that this game will include updated editions of Pea Ridge, Wilson's Creek, and Pleasant Hill, among others. We also have Nathan Mueller, who would be a first-time designer. He was making great progress on a Battle of Monocacy design, but then he landed a fairly demanding real job late last spring. But I know Nathan, and I have no doubt that he will not let that project languish any longer than necessary. Lastly, we are also working on new editions of the 3 oldest games in the GMT version of the series, and those would include River of Death, about Chickamauga, Red Badge of Courage, the 2 Bull Run battles, and 3 Days of Gettysburg. Now, there's some talk about these appearing as a tri-pack. Wow, that would be quite a tri-pack. Anyway, that is a lot of designs that we have underway. Fortunately, we are blessed with dedicated playtesters and a very active player community. That player community is best represented on the GBACW Facebook group, which is run by Alan Dickerson, and there's well over 1,200 members in that group. Alan also produces the Vassal modules for the games, including games in development. And if we didn't have him doing that, playtesting would be quite a bit tougher. So I would say to GBACW fans that you can all take heart because this series is as flourishing as it has ever been. Thank you, Gene.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate everything you do for that series, Bill. This is a team that Dick Whitaker and Bill and Greg are part of and have helped to build and perpetuate. It's a great example of taking an iconic product and series, and the designer unfortunately isn't with us anymore, but taking something that was his and moving it on with new points of view, with his blessing, to allow it to continue to create many, many hours of fun for our players. So I really appreciate everything you guys are doing with that, Bill. Please pass that on for me to Greg and to Dick as well.
I'll do that.
All right. Dan Bullock has been sitting there patiently all night. Dan, why don't you tell us what you're doing with In the Shadows and anything else you're working on for us?
Sure. Harold, am I allowed to share my screen? I promise I'll be really fast.
You can. I think you have rights. If not, let me know.
Rock. Looks good. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So I'm Dan Bullock. I'm part of the design team for In the Shadows, Resistance in France, 43 to 44, along with my co-designers, Chris Bennett and Joe Schmidt. As of now, we have about, here we go. We have about 600 orders on the P500 between Chris, Joe, and I. Our mothers have all pre-ordered it. So now we're just formulating social media strategies to get other people's mothers to pre-order it. So I think we've got some pretty good leads in terms of, we've written a few articles for Inside GMT and done a player's aid interview and like kind of overview of event cards. What we're looking at next is kind of trying to find ways to reach out to the wider community. I'm potentially going to be working on something for Dan Thoreau shortly for that, for Space Biff. And then our play tests are underway still. I've been running tests face-to-face because I like to see two-player games where people are actually manipulating components and I get to see them interact with the game. Even though lurking online has different advantages because, you know, you're less of a creep then. Feedback on the latest iteration has been very good. And I can typically tell when testing has hit its late phase in a round by the frequency with which I'm getting my ass handed to me by testers. And they're savage. They're very mean. They're not very nice to me. So feedback on the system's been positive. Balance is still being tweaked. But despite the asymmetry, we're seeing much better balance in agency and playtime for the two-player roles, the resistance and the occupation player. And players love the resolution deck, which we implemented to replace die rolls and offer more nuanced outcomes for player actions. And that was Jason Carr's suggestion, and it worked. That guy's pretty smart. He understands exactly how that stuff goes sometimes. And then Joe Schmidt is actually the one who's designing our solitaire system, which allows players to enjoy the game without an occupation player. And the player takes the role of the resistance and plays against an AI opponent. And the AI is directed primarily by cards, but it avoids flowcharts and simplifies play. And additionally, the player assumes one of 4 leader roles, which will give them kind of special ability they don't normally have as the resistance in the two-player game. But it also grants that player a secondary objective they need to meet in order to achieve victory. So they have the primary objective from the multiplayer game, and then they have the secondary objective. And that helps kind of offset that you don't have a wily human player to kind of play against, but you do have the added difficulty of trying to accomplish these two different things at the same time. And that'll also give some more variety and replay value to the game. While both Joe and I think that we're basically putting like 2 distinct games in one box, which is kind of the goal with this lunchtime offering here. And so our next step is basically we're going to be wrapping up play tests for this round for both solitaire and multiplayer. And then we're going to begin compiling the playbook, like historical notes, and also adding the extended example of play as we kind of wait for next step with artwork and whatnot.
Great. Thank you, Dan. All right, Dan, I appreciate that. John, is John Kaniski here? Let's see. All right. But Severio has also been sitting there patiently. So why don't you tell us what's up with you and what you're working on, Severio?
Hey there, everybody. Nice to see everyone again. This is such an exciting and fun con. It's inspirational to see all the new designs. We are still working on Vijayanagara. It is a passion project. It's got a scale where, of course, as Gene was saying in the beginning, that last 5%. We've been at about 6 months now. That last 5%. I think it was a really strong game then, and yet we're just finding ways to keep sanding down those smallest rough spots. The effort recently has been into the solitaire mode, so we're we're putting on our GMT1 hats, and we're developing what I think is a very nice narrative experience, which the bots are borrowing heavily from the Arjuna bot for Gandhi by Bruce Mansfield and the Trung bot for Fire in the Lake. But we're able to do some things with them based on the scale of Vijayanagara that are harder to do with some of the other coin volumes. So so far, I think they're pretty satisfying. We're entering into playtesting for the solitaire mode now. And just broadly speaking, I think the Irregular Conflict series, the ICS gang, the interactions with people like Joe Dewhurst and the designers of the other really exciting games coming out in that series, Fred Serval and Non-Breaking Spaces down here eventually. It's again, it's inspiring, and NB, as we lovingly refer to him as on the coin server, just bringing so many just different ideas in different directions, and it's great to see the excitement for Cross Bronx Expressway. So I think for me that really opens the doors to, well, if that kind of thing is viable, then it's just opens everything up for where to go next. So I'll just look forward to seeing more out of that, and I think that's all I've got. Thanks.
Oops. Thank you, Soraya. I appreciate that. Since you mentioned Non-Breaking Space, that famous designer, why don't you tell us a little bit about Cross Bronx Expressway and where you are? I think you may be muted still. No?
I am seeing you as unmuted, but we're not hearing anything. Maybe you want to take a look at your preferences, make sure it's using the microphone card you expected it to be using.
Tell you what, I will check back with you on Non-Breaking in just a minute, okay? John Butterfield. Where's John? I saw, yeah, there you
Yes.
go. John,
Hi, Gene. Hi, everybody. Thank you. Good to be here. I'll keep it quick, just talking about two different projects. One is Space Corp, which is heading for its second printing. I guess it's in the warehouse, and we'll be seeing that soon. Ventures, the first expansion, came out a few months ago, and that's doing well. And I've begun work on the next expansion, but not ready to say any more about that. The other project, of course, is Downfall, Chad Jensen's major opus on World War II, the game that picks up the entire war in Europe at the high water mark of the Axis expansion, and then it's about the conquest of the Third Reich. The several unique things about the game. The first is that no one plays the Axis. You have two players, one controlling the Soviets and the Germans in the West, and the other player controlling the Western Allies and the Germans in the East. So the victor is the major power that has the best position in Europe after the fall of Nazi Germany. And the game also features an innovative initiative system. You never know who's going to be moving next in the game among the four factions. So, Chad had been working on this game for the last 10 years, and then his passing, sadly brought that to an end. But I was honored to be asked by his wife Kai and by Jean to take over the design and finish it, and that's what I've been doing. And now, after a lot of testing on Vassal, and we've been able to do some live testing on paper at Consum World Expo and at the GMT West weekend. Now the game is going into development with a great team of Jason Carr and Bruce Mansfield. Bruce and I demoed the game earlier today at this con. And there's also an ongoing game at the convention going on that Mike Berticelli is running with a few other guys. It's kind of going on in his room at the convention if people want to drop in on that. The game will soon be approaching final art. Now, being a Chad Jensen design, his design work included a very finished looking product already. So using his, layered InDesign and Illustrator files, Kai and Mark Simonich will just be kind of refining his artwork as we make changes to the game in development. So we're really pleased with where it is there. It's a long game, so one of my final tasks on the game is to develop shorter scenarios. We'll do one that the long game starts, at Stalingrad. There'll be a shorter scenario that starts at Husky, which is, it's not same time as Kursk, and then a shorter scenario that starts at D-Day and Operation Bagration. So I'll be developing those over the next few months. What else? That's about it. It's been again honor to work on the project. We'll be it's on the P500. It's already got it's up to about 700 orders or so. So we're very happy about that. And yeah, we hope to have it all wrapped up and delivered by maybe first quarter, second quarter of next year. So thanks for your support. And if you're interested in testing, there's going to be a call for testers that Jason will be putting out in a few weeks, perhaps even on the upcoming GMT update. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, John. I'm so thankful that you're working on the game. You know that Kai and you are our first choice.
Mm.
I'm glad you took it on, and somewhere I know Chad is glad too.
Yeah.
Jerry White and Ed Ostermeyer are here, and I don't know what order you want to do this in, Jerry, but why don't you just go ahead and let us know what you're up to.
Okay, thanks. Hello, everybody. Great to see everybody here. Couple things. When Atlantic Chase came out, another designer, Mark Rodrigue, who is a fantastic designer. He did Bayonets and Tomahawks, which was published at the same time, shipped at the same time. Anyway, he started emailing me just after the game shipped, saying that he was really into the Battle of the Coral Sea. And he spent 100+ hours designing a Coral Sea game using Atlantic Chase system. So he's working on that, and it's pretty far along. I don't know if that's going to be packaged as an expansion. He's talking about Midway. Who knows? Maybe it's going to have several different games in it. He's zooming in just a little bit in terms of scale, getting a bit more detail on carrier actions. So that's cooking. Let's see. Skies Above Britain is nearing completion. I'm thinking we'll probably hand everything over to Mark Simonich for him to tweak the files probably in February. We're working on accessibility, make sure that when somebody gets the box and all the stuff in it, that they know how to play the game, that everything works and it's self-explanatory. And we're working on making sure that balance is working and the optionals are working. So that's the stage we're at there. And I've got another design part, and I'm doing that with Gina Willis. I have another design partner working on another project, which is very different. And I'll let Ed Ostermeyer talk about that.
The project that we're currently working on is Infernal Machine, the dawn of submarine warfare. It takes place in the mid-19th century at the height of the Industrial Revolution. And you've got it basically is a solitaire game where the player is actually an inventor. He actually is in the process of building what they called at the time a fish boat, which is a submarine. If you all have, you all may have remember them raising the H.L. Hunley back in the early part of this decade, or the past decade. I actually had a chance to visit the Lash Conservation Center in North Charleston, and actually it's quite an event, quite a thing to be able to stand next to that piece of history. It's really something. I was working with Dr. Kellen Butler over there, who's the executive director there, Also, I was hoping to talk with Dr. Michael Scafuri. He was one of the archaeological divers who actually went down to recover the Hunley. But the thing about it is that everybody knows about the Hunley. What they don't know is that there was more than just James McClintock and Baxter Watson and in their little machine shop in New Orleans, which is where the first submarine, the first American submarine, the Pioneer, was built as a purpose-built attack submarine. Because of the fall of New Orleans, they had to move to Mobile, which is where the Hunley was actually being put together. The game itself basically casts you in the role of the inventor, and what you're doing is first off, you have to. It's not just one of these things where the boat's already built and you just basically go out and try to sink something. You actually have to basically recruit your investors to be able to pay for the materials as well as the wages of your workers. You basically are going to be hiring mechanics to build it. Let's see, you'll be hiring a crew, and hopefully that if your entreaties to the War Office are fruitful, you'll be able to dip into the personnel files of the Navy and hire, and basically pick people to actually power your submarine for you. I would like to say that this is not just a Confederate operation or a Confederate-centric operation, because the Union troops Union side had their own submarine. It's called the USS Alligator. It was designed by a French emigre by the name of Brutus de Villebois, who actually had the delivery system on it. Was actually it was one of the first submarines to actually have an airlock that actually allowed them to send out two what we now would call salvage divers, in the big steel helmet, and they would basically carry the early version of a limpet mine across the seafloor to the enemy ship, or in some cases to a bridge piling or whatever, attach the mine and then walk back and climb into the submarine and then set the charge off. And we currently have, in addition to, we basically have you building the submarine. You have to train your crew and test the submarine in sea trials. That how well you do in the training and in the sea trials determines how prepared you are for whether or not the War Office will assign you a mission. And the other thing is that as you go out and as you are going through these different procedures that you have to do, building, recruiting, training, testing the boat. At the same time that this is going on, the American Civil War is going on, and the events that occur in the Civil War will actually have an effect on you. We have and your operation there. I think Jerry and I actually proved that yesterday when we actually had we were building our fish boat in Charleston, and we were getting ready to go and have it send it out for training. We got into what we actually consulted we have a 24-page gazetteer, what we call the Fortunes of War, and basically it's the outside world basically affecting everything that we do. And we basically rolled up, Admiral Samuel DuPont brings his brought the U.S. Navy down to shell Charleston. And it blew the submarine clean off of the slipway, and so we had to start all over again. And it's kind of realistic, it's very realistic, and because here we are, with a broken submarine. Fortunately, we didn't lose any crew, but we have to start the whole thing over again. But once you get started and out into the actually on the mission, the tension level goes up incredibly, because you're basically trying to see if you can get the best possible angle on we have a tactical board where you can basically get the attack angle on the ship, that on your target ship. The ship can be a Union Navy screw sloop of 12 guns, or it can be one of the armored monitors It's just amazing.
So Ed, we have a quick question here. Somebody's asking what the game was again. It's called Infernal Machine, and it's a solitaire game, and it should go onto the P500 next month.
That's correct. Yes, sir. That's correct.
All right. Thanks a lot, Gene.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys telling us all about that. Ed, I think I could listen to your stories all night. But Harold's going to kick us out of here in like 15 minutes max.
My apologies.
3 guys to no, it's no worries. I got at least 3 people to go. I'd like to, so please be as brief as you can so everybody gets a chance. Jeff, would you let us know what you're working on? Jeffrey Phipps.
Yeah, hi. There's Jeffrey Phipps here. Yeah, I'm working on Mons 1914. I could share the map but I don't want to take any more time. So this is the first battle between the British and the Germans in World War I. So it's 400-meter hexes, rifles, machine guns, artillery firing over open sights. It's a follow-on to the Gallipoli game that was published a few years ago. So where we're at, we had a big play test at Consim World Expo down in Arizona. Played one of the hypothetical media engagement games, which worked very well. Just means we adjusted the victory conditions slightly because it turns out that you end up with a separate series of knife fights in the willow swamps. And so we decided it should be really balanced based on who gets the most bridges. At the moment, the design is complete. I'm working on different ways of presenting the line of sight rules. In fact, up on my other screen, I have something I'm working on now, and I'll be posting that to Consim World and also to Board Game Geek in the next week. But for the last 6 weeks, I actually haven't been working on Mons. I've been working on a derivative of the Fletcher Pratt Naval Miniatures, the old range guessing game that I ran at Dragonflight, which is a hoot. I can't see publishing it, but or maybe I will. But anyway, that distracted me a little while. So next, it's, as I said, put out this line of sight presentation, get back to doing videos. There's a lot of videos that are put up on YouTube going through different parts of the rules, both for Mons and Gallipoli, because it's the same series. And that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jeff. I appreciate it. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing Mons. Ken T, I see you out there. Give us a quick update on where you are with People Power. Is he muted? Yeah, you're muted.
There we go. Sorry about that. I'll make it brief, as you said. People Power is good to go as far as I'm concerned. All my work is done. According to Jason, solo play testing is in its last legs, and he should have something like, I'll quote what he said, I should have everybody who's ordered P500 the game, which is, by the way, good numbers at 1,070 last time I looked. And he said that by April of GMT, if there is one, hopefully, everybody who P500 the game should have it in their hands. And there you go. Everybody have a good night.
Thank you, Ken. I like those numbers. Good job.
Thanks.
Let's see. Can we get non-breaking space back up here?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, beautiful. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
It's all yours.
First, seriously, thank you to Gene. I really just appreciate even just the opportunity to stand here virtually with all these people that inspired me as a designer is just an incredible opportunity. As was mentioned, I've been working on Cross Bronx Expressway with Joe Dewhurst as a developer, and Jason has been big help in that. And the process has just been amazing. This is a game that goes back for me almost 3 years, and I can say that in the last 6 months since we've been on this development track, I've seen it come alive in a way that I just couldn't even imagine that time before. And so I'm just really excited about that. We are doing play tests. I've been doing play tests, some physical play tests. There's some online play testing happening. I feel like the game is in a very good place right now. We're trying to just make sure that it's communicated in terms of the onboarding for it to get that really tight. So that people can really get into it really quickly, because it's definitely a heavier game than it probably looks on the outside. It's a lot heavier, but once you really get into it, it's something that everybody's really appreciating. I've also been doing a lot of work in terms of the research to be able to go inside of the playbook. So I've been having a contact with the Bronx Historical Society because a lot of the work that I've done has been about secondary resources, but they have a lot of primary resources there. Unfortunately, it's still been closed since the COVID restrictions have been in place, but hopefully they'll be opening up, if not by the end of this year, by the beginning of next year, so that I can go there and actually get those primary materials and sort of incorporate that historical stuff into the game, the final game and stuff. So it's moving really well. Like I said, thank you all. Thank everybody else from the coin server that's here. That's like just all been a support that's all getting us out there.
All right. Thanks so much for sharing that with us. I cannot wait to see this game. I love all kinds of historical strategy games, and yes, especially war games. But I think there's so much room for us to expand beyond war games and experience or explore all these nooks and crannies of history with these really terrific game systems that you guys have come up with. So I can't wait. Here, let me just check with Joe Smith. Joe Schmidt, I'm sorry, I saw he was out there, but I don't see him anymore.
Hey, I'm
Joe,
here. Hey, everybody.
You want to talk to us?
Yeah, no problem.
All right.
Thank you for having me. Please, I love Shin, and I love being able to talk to everybody and share the designs and stuff we're working on. In the Shadows, as Dan mentioned, is going great. Today, I did my first big public demo of Henry, which is a kind of a lunchtime levy and campaign game, and that went really well. I've also been working a lot on the solo bots for the Weimar Republic. That's been coming along great, and I'm very excited for people to see that and kind of a very interesting and streamlined narrative approach. And yeah, it was great seeing you and everybody at the weekend at the warehouse. I hope to be down there soon. And just kind of echoing what MB said, it's so cool that there are all these people I admire so greatly that I get to kind of chat with about games and game design, and I get to share my ideas. It's such a pleasure. So thank you so much for having me.
You're most welcome, Joe. And I alluded to this earlier. I just love having this collaborative environment that we've managed to create together, where we have these guys who literally, I played their games when I was a teenager, right? And they're icons in this hobby. They've done so much, and yet they're willing to share. They share their systems, they share their ideas, they share their expertise. We've got a whole bunch of other designers who have come to us maybe in the last 5 years, some of them in the last 5 months. And the guys who've been around and done this don't treat them like they're second-class citizens. They're part of the teams. And you guys bring different perspectives and new ideas. And I think it's a tribute to everybody involved, that there's just a lot of give and take and a lot of mutual respect. And that's certainly the environment that I want to foster going forward. And I hope that with that sort of environment, we can all grow. And as I tell people all the time, this is the worst game we're ever going to do together, that we can just keep doing better and better games as we move into the future. So thank you for what you bring. Harold, I'm going to give you the last word.
Well, I lied about the deadline, so we've got a half hour, so that means I have 30 minutes.
Yeah, you're a scamp. That's what you are.
That's right. Hey, Gene, I want to talk a little bit about Flashpoint South China Sea.
Okay.
Can you see the map picture there?
Yes.
So this is from the rule book. Of course, Terry Leeds did it. Jason Carr was the developer on it, but some really cool stuff in the rule book, and so some things that we might see from I don't know. Let's call it a Euro game. I'm not entirely sure what that means, but just a lot of examples in red, a lot of diagrams from the map, and I think it's going to be a very user-friendly sort of game. So I wanted to share that, and then cover the rules. I can share that real quick too.
And Terry's doing great work.
Oh my goodness, he is. He makes me look like a better designer. He makes me look like a competent designer, to be quite frank. There are rumors that there is also a Flashpoint game in development in the very earliest of stages related to the Cuban Missile Crisis. So no promises there, but we hope to see that. I have been working on the side in a Flashpoint Venezuela game. It's another perfect competition between the Chinese and the United States, as well as the Russians. I will tell you, Gene, that as I got into that, the end game got me a little bit depressed and turned me off on it. And I'm still not sure I'm going to finish it because, as the U.S. competes with the Venezuelan government and the Chinese, the end game here is assuming that we don't have a failed state already in Venezuela, a failed state, which is kind of gross. And so I'm not sure I'm going to finish it, but I think it might be a story that needs to be told. And so I may go ahead and continue with that in the Flashpoint series. I'd like to close though with, first of all, Gene, thank you for your support of this convention and what we've done over the years. But Gene, you and I decided to work with David Millett at Dice Tower West in Vegas to put on a war room in their convention. And it's a great convention to start with before we even showed up. 2,000 or so people will be there this next year. They're going to be at the Rio Hotel in March. Tickets are still on sale. Hotel rooms are still discounted, but that won't last long. But it's going to be a fantastic event. And we're going to have, we're fundamentally sponsoring a war room together, Gene, the San Diego Historical Games Convention and GMT. And so we're looking forward to seeing a bunch of familiar faces, but also using this as an opportunity to expose people that aren't familiar with historical games to historical games. So I just wanted to say I appreciate your support in that, Gene, and we are all very excited about what's to come. And with that, I am finished. And thanks again. What a great event. If you're a GMT lover like so many of us are, what a great place to sit and hear the stories about what people are working on. Thanks for that, Gene.
You're most welcome, Harold. Now I've got 23 minutes left, right? I did see Ananda out there, and I just wonder if Ananda wants to say anything.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, yes, sure. So let me plug in my camera real fast. Okay. I don't have a huge amount to say, but I do. Okay, there we go. I think I'm visible now.
Yes.
First I wanted to say, I mentioned this in the chat, but big congratulations to Terry for winning the Best Map Charles Roberts Award for Imperial Struggle. He was an amazing pleasure to work with, and he hit a home run with the Imperial Struggle map. And I wanted to say thanks to the gaming community for honoring Imperial Struggle with the Charlie for Best Early Gunpowder game. So thank you all, especially those of you who voted for it, but thank you all. My projects. So I've been unfortunately very busy with my day job. That business is growing a lot, and there's a lot to do. But on the wargaming and historical front, the two projects that I am most consumed by right now are a design about the French Revolution, which still still bounces around. It's still bouncing around, coming up with systems in my head and then discarding them. And then I'm starting to look at a Twilight Struggle Latin America game, similar to what Jason did with the Red Sea, which is on P500. I'm still not sure exactly where that's going to go, and actually, Gene, if you have a moment after this, I'd love to chat. But I'm still not completely sure where that's going to go. But I'm excited. I'm certainly excited to see how the hobby and how the players receive the Red Sea game, and whether Twilight Struggle, whether sort of smaller and shorter slices of Twilight Struggle and the sort of incredibly rich period that is the Cold War will sort of earn their attention. So that's all I have, Harold.
Thanks, Ananda. And just how about call me when we're done here? Okay, we'll do
Sounds
it
good.
that way.
Sounds good.
Harold, thank you so much for giving us the space to do this. And thank you, all you guys, the GMT team members, and all of you who support us so well through the years. We appreciate all of your support and everything that you contribute to this joint endeavor that we call GMT. Have a good evening. Thanks, everyone.